presents this program in color.
Hawks win! Hawks win!
Hold it. I think you're going to like this picture.
Ready? Go.
Here's Mike Murphy. He's the man of the fans of the ball.
Hawks win! Hawks win!
Mike Murphy is the show we promote on the score. Well, he's never been in a press box.
Hawks win!
I'll talk with the shock through the locker room door.
Hawks win!
And talking to fans on the score. And then
Hey, Pat Foley, did the Hawks win? Hawks win! Hawks win! Welcome back, everybody. Murph with you from now until 2 o'clock on a fun, feckless, beautiful Sports Friday in Chicago. We are 1 hour away from Tool of the Week, my friends at RentalMax, RentalMax.com. You know, this could be one of those weeks where, well, no, there have been a few tools out there, but everyone's in such a good mood. It's almost as if Tool of the Week seems an hour away, which it is. All right, let's do this. Let's get into what happened last night. Now, I'm going to keep some phone lines open for the Sox fans and the Cubs fans, but most of our phone lines, fellas, Nick over there, Jay's, let's keep the phone lines open for Blackhawks fans. I got some questions, some topics, some yellow pad. But knowing the great Blackhawks fans, I heard y'all phoning our guy here, Jay Zawoski, last night. What a game. Hawks win. Hawks win. Hawks win. Thank you, Pat Foley. 644-6767. But who would have thought? Was it just, Tuesday night? The Cubs lost, the Sox lost, and the Blackhawks lost, right? We took the old silver sombrero. We took the hat trick the wrong way. At the end of the old Murph show yesterday, Jay Zawoski had mentioned is, Murph, remember what Swami Murph, what you said right at the... I said, no, Jay, when I'm saying thanks for listening, thanks for calling, see you later, everybody, I really don't remember what I'm saying right there. But I know that we had a few things at the end of the... Oh, you got it? Hey, Trebs, when are we going to talk about the Hawks victory?
Tomorrow.
The Sox victory?
Tomorrow.
The Cubs victory?
Tomorrow. Now go have another beer. Don't bother me.
Murph said, thanks, listen, thanks for calling. See you later, everybody. Oh, man. If it were only that easy, huh? What a night. What a night. All right, it's Murph, 644-6767 is our famous phone number. I'm driven to you by ChevyDriveChicago.com. Speaking of Chevy, who'd I see at the Hawks game last night? John Phelan. Johnny Phelan looking good, son of Jack Phelan, Chevrolet, and the father of J.C. Phelan. It was great to see some of the familiar score guys out there, Johnny Phelan. Hey, I saw a famous guy. I got to meet him, Lee Stern. Remember, used to be involved with the Chicago Sting. Great to see Lee Stern and his lovely bride last night, Crane Kenny. Everybody was out at the Hawks game, talking to Crane Kenny for a little bit and talking with the great Hawks fans. All right, let's get the ball rolling. Hawks fans, Blackhawks fans, I'd like you to fill in the blank. I'd like to fill in the blank from your point of view. Give me a call. 644-6767. Last night was the biggest Blackhawks game of, and then I'm going to give you a few choices to fill in the blank. All right? Now think this over, then give me a quick call. Last night, Murph, was the Blackhawks' biggest game of the second round versus Vancouver. Murph, last night's Blackhawks game was the biggest game of the entire playoffs, both rounds. The biggest game of the entire season. Murph, last night's Hawks game was the biggest game of the entire United Center era for the Blackhawks. Murph, last night's Blackhawks game was the Hawks' biggest game of the entire decade. Or, hey, Murph, I got to tell you, I'm a younger guy. Last night's Blackhawks game was his biggest Hawks game of my life. All right? Hawks win! All right. Hawks win! So, fill in the blank. Biggest Hawks game of the second round versus Vancouver. The biggest game of the entire playoffs this year. Biggest game of the season. Biggest game of the entire United Center era. Biggest game of the decade. Or, quite frankly, the biggest game of your life. 644-6767. How about with, 3 minutes to go in regulation, I turn to the guy next to me, I say, when do you pull the goalie? You're down 1-0. You haven't generated much of anything. He says, oh, boy, I don't know. Pulling the goalie, Murph. Adding that extra skater. So then we were kicking this around. Well, of course, you don't have to pull the goalie. Havlet, my guy. Jay Zawoski, who's always been my guy. Haven't I just loved Havlet from the beginning?
Oh, yeah. Havlet's been your guy
my number
since
one
early.
guy. And you did a great job, by the way, in the post-game.
Thank you.
Fielding all the phone calls. Marty Havlet, Jay, you know hockey inside out. When I'm at a game, what I do, and I don't know if this is, I don't watch the puck, I watch a player. It's sort of like in baseball. I've always said, if you go to a baseball game, Wrigley Field, if you go to the U.S. Cell, once you become a fan to a certain degree, you no longer have to keep your eye on the baseball.
Correct.
In other words, let's say you're at a Sox game or a Cubs game, and the bases are loaded, and Jermaine Dye or Derek Lee, oh, wait, he doesn't play anymore, Michael Hoffpower hits a ball in the gap. It's rolling to the wall. Bases are loaded, right? You don't watch the ball roll all the way to the 368 sign or the gap sign, because here's a news flash. The ball ain't going to take a quick left turn. The ball's not going to stop. The ball's not going to take a quick right turn, and it's probably not going to jump over the fence. Watch the runners. Watch the cutoff men. Watch anything but the freaking ball. Now, when you get to that stage in hockey, you do the same thing. Now, a guy like you, Jay, when you're there and covering the game for the score, you're up in your favorite 300 level when you were one of only 3,000 fans going and you were there.
Yep.
Are you, because you're a hockey guy. Do you see that? See, for me, I don't really know enough about hockey, even though I've been going since Hull and Makita, to pull my eye off the puck. But last night I did it on Havlet. I bet you do that, right?
Yeah, I usually always sit up high.
Uh-huh.
I sort of watch what's trailing the play, who's coming from behind the puck carrier.
The late man.
Right, the late man.
That's
or the late,
bad
or
the
the
late man.
men.
The late man.
Right.
Or the
And
late men.
When you're up high, that's what's great about hockey. Is the higher seats, I think, are almost better because you see everything unfolding.
Right.
And that's really what, when you learn the game, that's what you learn to watch.
Well,
you learn to watch the play that's developing, not the play that's happened already.
To tie a bow on this, Jay, so I watch Havlet most of the time. This guy Havlet, he's got eyes in the back of his head. When he passes on the stick to every time he makes a pass. Sometimes it's behind the back blind. You've seen him between the legs where you don't think, and he always knows where he rarely gets his pocket picked. He rarely even coughs up or loses the puck. Now, I'm not even counting when he's the sniper and he's shooting for a goal. Now, I don't know about defense. We all like offense. But Havlet, he's a magician with the stick, no?
Absolutely, and I want to use the word physical.
Okay.
But not as far as hitting or checking, but he uses his body to defend the puck better than anyone on the Hawks, I think. He uses his back and his butt to keep the defenseman away. Let's
go to the phone lines, 644-6767. So I want to ask you if you're really a hockey expert. When you pull the goalie, so we were talking 3 minutes to go, Hawks down 1-0. Hey, when do you pull the goalie? And we're thinking, well, you know what? Maybe the 2 minute and a half mark, but if it's a playoff game, maybe you roll the dice, you pull Hobby Boolin with 2 minutes to go. Then later on the way home, here's where I'd like your help. We were talking about what are the odds of you succeeding when you pull a goalie. Now, we tried to look it up before, and we couldn't really find it. I'm sure there's a stat man somewhere out there, Jay. But I like to ask Hawks fans, when you pull a goalie, I believe, I'm going to just make these numbers up off the top of my head. You're going to score maybe 1 out of 10 times to tie it up. But about 9 out of those other 10 times, they're going to hit the empty net, you're down by 2, and the game's over. Jay, work up a few of your little ideas on those numbers. Maybe you can find them. We tried for a minute before. What are the odds when you pull a goalie? Because, man, with 2:44 left, when Havlet tied it and the place goes nuts, when Havlet ties it, we don't have to worry about pulling the goalie anymore. Let's go to Rolling Meadows. John on the score. Hello, John.
Hey, what's up, Murph? I was at one of the bars last night watching the Blackhawks game, and I gave my buddy an elbow and said 24's in the game.
Right.
Something good's going to have to happen now. We got 2.5 minutes left in this game.
Yes.
And I'm watching him.
Yes.
There was nobody near him in the center of the ice, and I'm like, man, if he gets that puck, we're going to score. And he got the puck, and he did score. And my buddy gave me a high five so hard he broke my hand. But he's like, yeah, you called it.
Havlet, I'll tell you what, I know his first 2 years he was injured. He's a free agent at the end of the year. I'm only worried about right now, and the guy's a magician. All right, Rolling Meadows, John, fill in the blank any way you wish. Last night, hold on. Let me set it up here, buddy. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, John, hang on, buddy, for people just joining me. Fill in the blank. John's going to go first. 4, last night's Blackhawks game, Rolling Meadows, John, was the biggest Hawks game of...
the history of the United Center by far and away.
Entire UC era. Hey, John, I love it. I hope there's many more victories for you and your buddies at that sports bar.
So too, Murph.
Thank you, bud.
Day.
Appreciate it. Hawks win! Hawks win! Yes, they do. And yes, they did. Let's go to, I need a real expert out there. How often, maybe you already know this stat, when you pull a goalie with like a minute and a half to go, how often does that really work? How often does that really succeed? Let's go next to Dubs. I don't dread this call from Bedford Park. Hey, Dubs.
Hey, Murph, how's it going today, sir?
Oh, fine. Dubs, I'll tell you what. That game was, with 3 minutes to go in regulation, were you thinking about when do we pull a goalie? I bet you were.
A little bit, but I just said I knew in my heart that they couldn't give up because the fans kept screaming, and I just said my nephew and my wife and my other nephew, I had 2 nephews and my daughter, blah, 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 were watching the game, and I said the game is not over until the last second ends.
Wait, I'm going to steal that. I'm going to steal that line, Dubs. The game is never over till the last second is played. All right. Fill in the blank, Dubs. Last night, Blackhawks win was the biggest game of what? The second round, the season, the decade?
Since the second round when Joe Murphy scored the double overtime goal. I think it was against, I'm not sure it was Colorado. Yeah, it's been years. So
Joe Murphy. Good old number 17. Funny you should mention that. I was wandering around the main concourse before the game. They have the Blackhawk timeline, up on the wall with everything from Mosienko in the old days to the current. And they had a picture of Joe Murphy scoring that goal. And you couldn't be more correct. This might have been the biggest win since the Joe Murphy goal, right?
I think so.
I like it.
Can I touch on something else?
Of course, Dubs.
The one thing I am worried about now, it's been happening every game.
Yeah.
Our defense, and it seems like Versteeg has a real bad habit of passing back in our zone.
Mm-hmm.
And Versteeg almost scored a goal in our own net last night because it bounced over Walker's stick, and it went right to the goalie.
Right, it was
it's a goal.
It was an airborne pass. I didn't know if it had bounced or was flipped airborne, but it almost caught Hobby off guard, and he gloved it on the left side. It looked like it might go right in.
Yeah, and our defense is, I know, so having a bad tendency of constantly passing back in our zone, and we gave up a few goals because of that.
Hey, I'll tell you what, biggest game since Joe Murphy. Thank you, Dubs.
All right, Murph.
All right, buddy. Appreciate it very much. Hawks win! Hawks win! And I don't know about in the last 30 years Blackhawks, but Vuk for the last 30 years. You want stability in your insurance, man? Jeff Vukovich for all your insurance needs. Murph's nationwide insurance agent of the year. Vuk! Jeff Vukovich in Park Ridge. Back in a flash. Everyone on hold, get right to you. Hey, I got Yellow Pad. There's going to be a beanball battle tonight at the Sox game at home with the Rangers. Kenny Williams says so today. All but says so in the paper. And Lou Piniella pulling every move right last night. And maybe he did everything right on that Tuesday lineup game now against Lincecum. Look what's been happening. It's just the Astros, Murph. Yeah, you know what? Everybody plays the Astros, and everybody beats them, and you better beat them all. So it's the score back in a flash. 644-6767. Does it help when you pull the goalie? How often? How often do you get burned? It's the score.
Fire Wagon Racehorse Hockey.
Oh, it's Murph. Sox win. Cubs win. Hawks win. Hawks win. Hawks win. Yeah, I'll tell you what. 3 minutes to go in the game. Didn't look good. In fact, I turned to my buddy at the game, Al, and I said, hey, Al, I don't think we're even going to hear the song tonight. Which you hear every time the Hawks score. This is Jonathan Page, Johnny Be Good. And the song never sounded so good. Through the week in about 40 minutes or so at 1 o'clock. I'm driven to you by ChevyDriveChicago.com. Let's get right back to the phones. Also, no one I see, Jay, wants to step out on this, on my little question of what would you guess the odds are when you pull the goalie that you actually succeed. In 10 times when you're down by a goal late in the game, minute and a half to go, you pull a goalie, you have 6 on 5 or whatever. Usually 6 on 5, of course, unless there's a penalty involved, I understand. And it seems like maybe I was going to say 1 out of 10 times you succeed, and 9 out of the other 10 times, they might just fire it down into the empty net. Not one of our great Hawks fans has taken the bait, huh?
No, surprisingly not.
Now
usually, yeah.
Okay, now I see you guys Googling around back there. I have a feeling if you have something you think you're going to be able to bring to the table maybe in a few minutes. Don't tell me. Did you find something?
I think so. I may have found something.
Okay. It's probably like, 50-50. I'm trying to be John DeWan here without the computer, which is never a good idea. Let's go to Franco, Villa Park. I got Rockford. I got Kenosha. Everyone's talking hard hockey. Hey, Franco. Well, Franco held in Villa Park. Sorry, Franco. Call back, buddy. I hear you breathing heavy. Let's go to Rockford. Is Jason on the score? Hey, Jason.
Big Murph, what's up?
I'm fine. How you doing?
Oh, pretty good.
Tell me the truth with 3 minutes to go. By the way, were you watching TV? Were you there last night? What?
I was watching on TV.
All right. Tell me the truth. With about 3 minutes to go in regulation, down 1-0, you weren't feeling too good, were you?
I was a little upset.
A little depressed, I bet, like me, right?
Oh, yeah.
So then, all of a sudden, they tie it up, and then in overtime, as Pat Foley called it, racehorse hockey, they win the game. Jason, let's fill in the blank. Last night's Blackhawks victory was the biggest Hawks victory of?
I would say of the history of the United Center.
Wow.
And it was definitely the most exciting game.
I tell you what, the stars of the game, left and right. Who was your star of the game last night? Mine was Marty Havlat, as always. I love the kid.
Oh, it's got to be Havlat.
Really? How about the two-line scoring, both of the goals? Out there taking control, and you got the line Havlat, Ladd, and Boland. Havlat with the game tire, Ladd with the game winner. It was just as exciting. In fact, Jason from Rockford says the most exciting Blackhawks game of the history of the United Center. Jason, thanks for checking in from Rockford, buddy.
Hey, I got a question for you, too, Murph.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to see what you think about if we're going to be able to get Hobby Boolin back for next year, if you think he's going to be gone and we're sticking with UA.
Well, I heard Brian Hanley today, and Brian covered hockey for years, and the Money Jam, which I never rule anything out, though, now with John McDonough and Rocky Wirtz. It's not like the old days, Jason, whether you're a young fella or an old-timer. The money was always the issue with, the Wirtz family. But now, with the salary cap, even if Rocky wanted to open it up, you still got a cap. So Hugh A., I would think, is still in line for that goalie job, but, man, it's going to be tough to lose Hobby, won't it?
Oh, yeah. He's been great for us this playoff.
He's been terrific the whole end of the season and the playoffs. Thank you, buddy. Jay Zawoski, we know about the salary cap. We understand all that. We hate talking money. Right now, I just want to have fun talking about the victory. But are you ruling out? Do you rule out that Hobby could be back next year? Is that like just rule it out? He ain't coming back? I mean...
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
No way, Jose?
I don't think so. Unless they trade Hugh A. That's the only way.
No way, Hugh A.
No way, Hugh A.
Now, Hugh A's not bad, right?
No, he's not bad at all.
All right.
No.
A lot of money involved to open up, because they still have to try to So, in other words, if it's between Havlat and Hobby, Boolin, knowing you have Hugh A., what do you do?
Havlat's the priority for sure.
You got to, don't you?
Yep.
You got to. Let's go to Southside Dan on the score. Hey, Dan.
Hey, how you doing, Murph?
Good. Welcome to the score. I hear you want to step out and help me with your thoughts on pulling the goalie, because, let's be honest, 3 minutes to go in regulation, you were thinking, when is Coach Q going to pull Hobby off the ice and put the skater on? You were thinking it with about 3 minutes. When is it going to happen, right?
Well, I thought it was going to happen with about a minute and a half left.
Well, let me ask you this. That's sort of standard operating procedure, I believe, SOP, standard operating procedure, minute and a half. Would, in the final game, in not do or die in the playoffs like that, would you consider doing it earlier?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I think I saw a game where they pulled them with 2 minutes left.
I think you're right. Now, what do you think? Now, did you look something up, or is this off the top of your head? What do you think the odds are when you pull the goalie? How often does it work, and how often does it go the other way against you in the empty net?
This is off the top of my head. I've been watching the Hawks since my mom drank a beer with Pat Stapleton when he was in the hospital once. He had him cooling on the refrigerator window. The bathroom window.
That would be Whitey Stapleton, girl number 12 for the old-timers like me, right?
Oh, yeah. He called me up when I got home from school. I was so excited that he knew my name. I almost fainted.
Whitey Stapleton, the defenseman, number 12, real scrappy guy. He had like the reddish hair and went sort of white as a young player. Whitey Stapleton. He had a cold beer in the hospital right there on the window ledge, and your mom had one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But what I'm thinking about pulling the goalie is it depends on the team, Murph. If they're a good power play team, that number's got to be higher. And if they're not a good power play team, it's not going to matter if they got an extra guy out there or not. So I'm thinking that's why you're not getting so many people calling. So it's going to depend on the team.
So if we even find which I guess Jay Zawoski just found it, the league average, that really doesn't say much because every team is built, of course, differently. So every team would have a little different percentage opportunity of sniping it in there with the 6-on-5.
There you go, Murph.
I gotcha. Hey, I'll have a cold beer for Whitey Stapleton. I will at 2 o'clock today. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
All right, buddy. When we come back, we're going to pepper in with all our Blackhawks calls, some Cubs and Sox, Tool of the Week at 1. And when we come back, Jay Zawoski's got the NHL average percentage of how often a team succeeds. Do you, Jay, when we come back?
Yep.
All right, buddy. Sports Radio 670. It's Murph-a-Palooza. We're here till 2 o'clock. Oh, and I saw my guy last night. Saw Johnny Phelan at the Hawks game looking great. You got to see Jack.com, Jack Phelan Chevrolet, home of the GM Total Confidence Package, the 5-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty, OnStar vehicle value protection, the payment protection up to 9 months. Check it all out at Jack Phelan Chevrolet. You got to see Jack.com. Hawks win. Thank you very much.
I thought I had it. I really did.
Hawks win. I wish we could talk a little more Hawks hockey with someone that's, out there every day, at practice every day, someone who covers the Liberty Line ringing. I tell you, the song never sounded better than with 2 minutes and 44 left in regulation. Let's fire it up. Let's go to the Chicago Tribune. Chris Cook covering the Chicago Blackhawks for the Chicago Tribune. It's Murph. Hello, Chris.
Murph, how you doing?
How am I doing? Are you kidding me? Everyone's doing fine. Not only did the Sox and the Cubs win last night, Chris, remember Tuesday? The days are merging with all the great Blackhawks stuff. Tuesday was the triple-header loss. Cubs lost, the White Sox lost, Blackhawks lost. We turned it around last night, and what a game at the United Center. The song we just heard, Chris, never sounded better to a Hawks fan than last night with 2:44 in regulation. I didn't think I was going to hear that song all night. It turned out we did.
Yeah, it took a while to get to it, didn't it? Yeah, and then you got to hear it twice in just a couple of minutes. That was quite a thrilling finish after what I thought was a pretty well-played game up till then.
Yeah, in fact, the Vancouver goal was actually, in a sort of funny way, it was one of the Hawks' better efforts down trying to put the puck in their net, and we had a quick little turnover, and there they came down with the odd man advantage, and right there, that was very deflating.
Yeah, it sure was. It really was the best Hawks shift of the game thus far. It was Troy Brouwer had a couple of chances, and Jonathan Toews was right there. So yeah, right when it looked like the momentum was going in the Hawks' favor, and they finally found some offense, they go down the other end and they give up the lead. So yeah, that was kind of deflating, and I think that's been a trademark of this team is to be able to overcome something like that. It just took a little bit longer this time than it usually does.
Hey, Chris, controlling the amount of penalties. It seems to me it's got to be difficult. The Hawks had too many penalties a few games there, and power play, of course, for the other team. How does a coach, be it Coach Quenneville or anybody, how do you tell players in the pregame or the skate the day before the meetings, how do you say, listen, we're playing the most violent game, we're banging the hell out of each other, but let's not have any penalties out there? How do you do that?
Yeah, it's tough because they tell them, go out there with energy, go out there and skate hard and play hard, and at the same time, keep your sticks down. I think that's the key is keep your sticks on the ice and don't reach. They always say, make sure you skate, move your legs. And that's really, when you get into penalty troubles, when you don't move your leg and you start reaching with the stick and you start tripping and hooking. I think that's one technical way to do it. But the other way is, you just got to realize that it's a big game and you got to kind of balance, being out of control on the ice there and then keeping some control with the stick. So I think both teams actually were pretty adept at that last night. And we saw a game that didn't have many penalties. And I thought it was a pretty tightly fought defensive battle, but, again, the Hawks offense came alive right at the end.
Chris Cook at the Tribune, nice enough to pick up the phone for a quick minute, talk about last night's Hawks game. Because last night's Hawks game, Chris, was the biggest Hawks victory of, and then we asked the fans earlier to fill in the blank. So I'm going to put our guy Chris Cook on the spot here, Chris. The statement, and then fill in the blank, such as, hey, Murph, last night was the Hawks' biggest game, biggest victory of... Well, you could say the second round versus Vancouver, or you could say the biggest game of the playoffs so far, or you could elongate it and say, Murph, that was the biggest Hawks victory of the season, the United Center era, the entire decade, or a young fan could easily say that was the biggest Hawks victory of my entire life, Murph. Where would you put that? Because you're a young guy. How would you fill in that blank? The biggest Hawks game last night of what?
Yeah, I was about to say I'm not that young, so I'm not going to go with that one.
All right.
I remember some pretty big ones, but I would say that's up there within the last decade. I mean, if you think about it, they hadn't made the playoffs in 7 years previous to this. And that's what it's all about, really, is making the playoffs and advancing. And I think if we look back on this, especially now they got some momentum going, and that's the kind of game that can really spark you, further on into the playoffs. So if they win this series, then you're talking about, playing in the conference final, something they haven't done in a while. So I would say in the last decade, I think that's a pretty significant victory.
I agree. And, guy in the car, you guys on the radio, you're always embellishing. Now, here's why we say this, I believe, Chris, if I can parallel with you. We're looking at, hey, you lose that game last night, you're down 3-1, you're going to Vancouver, and let's be honest, you're probably dead meat. You're down 1-0 with 2:44 to go. You haven't really generated, even though the Hawks had more shots on goal last night by quite a margin for some of the... They really never had any big shots on goal, more than one or two. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they didn't sustain a whole lot of offense for a long time. They had some chances. I mean, Troy Brouwer had a chance.
Right.
Chris Versteeg, had an opportunity, but Luongo was looking good, and he saved 26 of 28 shots for the Blackhawks. So yeah, I would say, when you talk about big games and big goals, that Martin Havlat goal is one of the biggest we've seen there in quite a long time. Especially as you said, you go to Vancouver down 3-1. You got to run the table the rest of the way, and it's not going to be very easy.
Marty Havlat, what a story! For the first 2 seasons on the 3-year big deal, the fans were saying, who's number 24? What's this? Now, with the contract at the end, that's not the reason. I'm sure he's healthy. I don't want to think about do they retain him or not. I just want to think about the fact that it's Martin Havlat. He is so much fun to watch. Sure, you got your Canes and your Tays and Sharp and Steger and Ladd. I mean, you got so many great names. But you know what? He's my personal favorite just to watch and isolate on because he is, as I said a few minutes ago, he's a magician with the stick out there, Chris Cook.
If you give him a little space, he's so creative, and I think that was the key. He got a little space last night. Andrew Ladd made a terrific play along the boards to get him that puck, and then once he turned and wheeled and had a little room, you had a feeling something special was going to happen. And I think that's kind of what Vancouver had tried to do all the last couple of games is limit that kind of space for guys like Havlat and Kane. Right. And as soon as there was a moment, there was a little brief glimpse there of a little daylight. Havlat took it and showed you what he had.
All right, Chris, I know you're doing double duty here for the Tribune. I'll leave you with this. It's impossible to know the future unless you're like Swami Murph with a predict. I predict. But what do you see? Come on, what do you see coming up here for the end of this series?
Well, I'm writing about tomorrow. I'm going to write about the momentum shifts in this series. Just when it looks like a team's got the momentum and they're going to run away with it, they lose or the other team wins. So,
right.
I'm back to my inclination. I got to admit, I picked Vancouver before the series started to win in 7.
Right.
But after the first couple of games, I kind of shifted and thought, well, I'll eat crow if that happens, but the Blackhawks might win this. I think the Hawks have a little momentum, and I think they have a real good chance to win, tomorrow night in Vancouver. And if that happens, they're going to take the series.
Yeah, let's win it at home, Game 6, right?
Exactly.
You got it. You got it. Hey, Chris Cook, always a pleasure. You do a terrific job. Chicago Tribune, ChicagoTribune.com. Check. Hopefully we get to catch up with you another week or two, if you know what I mean.
I hear what you're saying, Murph. Take care.
Thanks, Chris. Bye-bye, buddy. It's Murph back in a flash. Tell you what, let's do this, Jay Zawaski. When we return, we want to get into some Cubs and Sox talk. Here's what I'm going to talk about. Kenny Williams with a very, very, very interesting statement in the Tribune today, something that he'll probably get fined by the commissioner for saying. When you use the word reciprocating, when you're talking about knocking down other hitters on other teams, and he's saying the exact correct thing. So I got to congratulate Kenny for stepping out right here. If you're going to the Sox game tonight or listening on the Score, it could get very interesting with brushbacks, knockdowns, and hopefully, it's good, clean, hard baseball, which I'm sure it will be. And a little Cubs talk when we return. Lou Piniella, a master last night in manipulating his bullpen rotation in the 8th and 9th inning. And no one's laughing at Lou's lineup from Tuesday now. Cubs have won a couple in a row. Sports Radio 670. Murph, driven to you by Chevy. DriveChicago.com. About 10 minutes away from Tool of the Week. Start getting your sports tool nominations in line. We'll open up the phone lines in a couple. But let's, real quick, Jay Zawaski, I know you got the final notes off the, where'd you go? Google up internet. How'd you find when you pull the goalie in the NHL, how often is that a good idea, percentage-wise? How often is it not a good idea?
Well, on this here from the Behind the Net blog, says teams score 5.5 goals per 60 minutes when they pull their goalies. That's 4 times as likely to score the tying goal than if they kept the goalie in. So that works out to roughly you have a 9% chance of scoring every minute you have the empty net.
That's basically what I said.
That's pretty much exactly what you said.
About 10% of the time you probably score. So it means, but still a gamble you have to take. If you're losing by, well, you don't have to. You could play straight up 5-on-5. But then they just kill you.
Right. It says overall, 40 to 60 games per year get tied up with the goalie pulled compared to less than 10 if the goalie stayed in.
Yeah, okay. But they don't tell you how often they hit the empty net and put you down by 2.
Yes, it does.
Oh, okay.
The 10 times is likely to put the game away with an empty net goal.
That's exactly what I guessed.
Yep.
Right?
So it's 10 times, Yep. 10 times is likely.
Did you ever see that squirrel with the blindfold on that found a nut? Yeah,
yes.
That was me that time.
Okay.
Let's talk some baseball, Jay. Where do we start? North side, south side? All right. How about a quick little Cubs talk, then some Sox talk? Number 1. Remember when Ryan Theriot hit a grand slam last Friday? Cubs were trailing 5-2 at the grand slam last Friday, put the Cubs ahead. They had a 2 or 3 game losing streak going. They lost like 3 of their 4. Theriot turned that game around, and since then, Cubs have won 6 of 7 since Theriot's grand slam. Remember Lou's lineup Tuesday, right? All the Scribinis in it, a JV squad, right? The red shirt guys were all in there. Remember that? Oh, Murphy threw the game. Well, they did lose that game. Now, they've won 2 in a row. It was Houston. See, don't say that, because it's not part of the equation. Here's the thing. Let's say that Lou had done what everyone wanted, played all the regulars against Lincecum on Tuesday afternoon. Now, you lose that game. Now you go to Houston. Say you lose it even, with the regulars against Lincecum. Now you go to Houston, and you got to rest a couple guys on Wednesday, got to rest a couple guys on Thursday. You've gone 17 games in a row then without a day off, right? So I think what Lou did is going to be proven to be a great move. He lost that game with Lincecum, but he spanked the Astros 2 in a row. And those are the teams you got to beat. Well, everyone beats the Astros. Okay, well, you better beat the Astros. Cubs pitching, see this note today? Cubs are tied for the league lead in quality starts by their starters. But guess who they're tied with? Milwaukee Brewers. Guess where they're at? 3 games with the Brewers right now. And the matchups for the Cubs for the 3 games in Milwaukee. It was Randy Wells. Who's he? Dempster and Marshall. Randy Wells up from the minor leagues. And White Sox fans, be ready. Buckle it up if you're going tonight. Why? Kenny Williams says in the Tribune today, our pitchers must go to bat for our hitters. What's he saying? According to Mark Gonzalez, Kenny Williams called out his pitching staff for not protecting Sox hitters. You quote, you cannot allow the other teams to pitch inside and knock your players down and not reciprocate, Williams said. Here's what happened. Remember when the Sox played the Rangers? Here it is. I got it pulled out here. Last Saturday, 3 of the Sox batters were hit by pitches. Konerko, Guy, and then, Konerko again. They had 3 hit batters. The Sox pitchers who did not reciprocate that game, Contreras, Richards, Broadway, Thornton, Carrasco. The next day, the day game Sunday, Texas, they did it again. They drilled Josh Fields in their wrist. No reciprocation in that 5-1 loss. Who pitched for the Sox? Danks, Dotel, Carrasco. Then, of course, Quentin gets drilled on Tuesday, but everybody drills Quentin because he leans over, and, that's it. But Sox pitchers, no retaliation there either. Floyd, Thornton, Dotel, Linebrink, Carrasco, and Broadway. Me, if I'm Lance Broadway or Carrasco, I would have found a way to low bridge or drill someone in a fanny in that Saturday game, because right now Kenny Williams has to go into paper to tell the Sox pitchers to get tough and protect their hitters. Sports Radio 670. Murph, driven to you by ChevyDriveChicago.com. Off power just keeps hitting. Just keeps hitting. And Lou last night, 8th inning, 9th inning. Terrific the way he used Marmol. Then he went to Chad Fox. Then he has to bring in Greg, but a perfect usage of the bullpen again by Lou Piniella. All right, Tool of the Week next, 644-6767. Anyone involved in the world of sports, tool them up next for my friends at RentalMax.com.
It's tool time, and the phone lines are open. So let Murph know who your tool of the week is at 312-644-6767.